What's going on, everybody? This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach, and I'm bringing to you again another episode of Kick Your Butt Out. Before I get going, I want to first and foremost say thank you to every last one of you all who has been supporting this podcast by tuning in, some of the comments. I appreciate you all following me and all of the wonderful things that you're doing to make this thing possible. I'm hoping, my hope and my prayer is that the content that you are listening to, if you relate to it, or if you know someone that relates to it, let's have some conversations about that, because at the end of the day, this podcast, the birth of this podcast, the inspiration in this podcast, the vision of this podcast is to have these conversations so that we can move these things out of our way and walk in the greatness and the extraordinary potential that's within us and that's ahead of us. Because truth be told, if we are created in the image and in the likeness of God, as he says, and as many of us believe, he's greatness. And so he's greatness with a big G, and we have some greatness with a little g. He's extraordinary with a big E, and we're extraordinary with a little e. And so the problem that I have with that is that many of us, and I've been guilty of this myself, many of us, because of this little word but, have hindered ourselves, blocked ourselves off from the greatness and the extraordinary potential because of this little bitty 3-letter word, but, which we have made excuses. So the idea is to kick your butt out, so again, that we can move forward. And if you don't kick your butt out, or if you know someone that doesn't have the capacity or the desire to kick their butt out, then we can't blame anybody but ourselves for the mediocrity going on in our lives, for the average that goes on in our lives, for us living beneath who we have been created to be. Not that we are better than anybody else, not saying any of that. However, I know for a fact that many of us, there's something more to life for many of us, and we don't reach it because we put the word but in our way. So, I'm gonna get off of that now and get on into what I want to talk about today. Again, if I didn't say it already, I want to say this. And I ask everybody to please get it in your thinking so that you can incorporate it into your life. And that is, if you're looking for a but, it's going to always be easy to find one. It's just that simple. All right. So, as I was thinking about the content for today's episode and the title for today's episode, it brought me back to when I was a child. And there was a rule, a spoken rule in many households. Thank God that my mother didn't do that. But many households that I knew of, it was a spoken rule that that people had to go by. And that was, what goes on in this house stays in this house. And so people didn't know how to talk in those days, because that's what the rule was in their households. Only to find out now, as I'm reconnecting with many of my childhood friends, that many of them was abused in those what goes on in this house stays in this house houses. In many ways, they were abused. And unfortunately, some of them still don't know how to talk about it to this very day because of the way that they were raised and the way that they were taught. So this podcast is designed to unlearn that. And I titled it because of that, But You Won't Tell on It. So I want us together to learn how to tell on that thing before that thing tells on us. When it comes, and this can go or apply to all kinds of relationships. Our intimate relationships with our spouses, our professional relationships, our relationships with our children, friends, etc. This can relate to any relationships. One that I want to talk about specifically is our personal relationships, our intimate relationships with our significant others. Many cases where relationships are harmed, hurt, strained, and in many cases ended, a lot of it has to do with the things that we would not talk about, that we needed to talk about. A lot of the things, it had a lot to do with the things that we wouldn't tell, that we needed to tell. Many of us, and I've been guilty of that, that's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here talking about this. Especially us who are in the church, especially us, those of us who are believers. We go into our respective churches, halls, mosques, you name it. We go into our respective places and we have the congregation or our fellow believers to think that everything is fine in our relationships. And then we go home, or not even go home. Many cases, we are arguing in the car on the way to our places of worship. We'll show up like everything is fine. Then when we're done, we'll get in our car and argue on our way back to the place that we call home, the place that's supposed to be our place of safety, our place of rest, our place of peace, our place of togetherness. It ends up being our boxing ring, so to speak, for lack of a better word. It ends up being our boxing ring. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that from a physical standpoint. This is where we spar with one another at. Verbally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we come in and we spar with one another. And we won't tell them what's really going on. And one of the reasons why is because in our places of worship, we have put it in our mind that when we get to our places of worship, we go to our places of worship because we are perfect. And that's not true. We go to our places of worship because we are broken and we are trying to get fixed. We go to our places of worship for that. And so, again, the thing that bothers me is, I see it in other couples in our places of worship because, as a relationship coach, I've been taught how to recognize and notice those things, as well as in my own personal relationship. I'm gonna keep it 100 with y'all. So again, we want people to think that everything is okay when it's not. And part of the reason why is because we're so focused we are focused more on what people think about us rather than what God says about us. I'm gonna say that again. Part of the reason for that is because we're so focused on what people says about us more than what God says about us. T.D. Jakes said it like this. He said, I remember in the scriptures what Jesus gave the keys to heaven to Peter. I don't remember in the scripture where he gave the keys to hell to anybody. As a matter of fact, he went and took them. Why did I just say that? Because people, listen to me. No one on this earth has a heaven or a hell to put you in. So what I'm encouraging and what I'm saying is, you have to tell on what's really going on so you can work through that thing, heal that thing, and overcome that thing before it ends up where you're in the detrimental situation or a point of no return. So please, people, stop focusing your capacities on what goes on in this house stays in this house. Stop focusing your capacities on what are people going to say? What are people going to think? What are people going to do? Are people going to reject me? Are people going to find out that I'm not perfect? Are people going to find out that I'm human just like them? Stop focusing your capacities on that and find a safe place where you can be honest about what's really going on. Because Jay-Z said it, you can't heal what you won't reveal. Learn how to talk about what's really going on. Learn how to tell on it, because it's going to tell on you. And if it tells on you, a lot of times you have the point of no return. A lot of times it's really bad when you get to the place where it tells on you. My life has been like that for so many years. And I'm in a place and in a position now that I take pride in telling on it. Whatever's going on with me, I'm so grateful for the fact that God has given me a circle of people that I trust, that I can be trusted by, that are there for me, and I could talk to about anything and not be left to feel like, well, they found out I'm human, or they found out that I'm imperfect, or I feel shame or less than a man to be able to talk about the things that I need to talk about. Because you have to understand something about Paul. I'm a person that many of the years that I used drugs, heroin, was because of a lot of stuff that I couldn't talk about. A lot of stuff I didn't feel safe enough to talk about. So I know for me, if I don't talk about it, it's not going to come out right for me. So I have to talk about those things. And I'm just strongly encouraging you, if you're having some trouble in your personal relationship, if you're having some problems or some disagreements, and let me say that, I wanted to make sure I say that. Just in your personal relationship with your spouse, just because the two of you don't agree on a thing, it doesn't make either one of you wrong. It just means that you all don't agree. And you all have to find that space where everybody's position is validated and respected. So again, just because you don't agree, that doesn't mean that somebody is wrong. It's just that you all have different positions on a certain situation, and to work on how do we make sure that our different positions can be validated and respected, so that we won't have our home be a sparring place. Inky Johnson said it like this: do you want to win, or you want to do what's right? Just that simple. So I'm gonna leave that one there, and I'm gonna go to talk about it from a professional standpoint. I was talking to a person the other day, and this is, please listen to this, because this thing is deep. This thing is really deep. I was talking with a person the other day, and it's a person that, a human resources person. and they're preparing, didn't tell who the people was or anything. Didn't. So we're not going there. Didn't tell who the people was or anything. Just had a conversation about a matter that had to be dealt with at work. And the sad part about it was that the person who was involved in this matter had been working at this company, I think she said 25, 27 years, somewhere around there, many years. And unfortunately, the conversation that the human resources was going to be having with this individual was a conversation to say, we have to fire you. We at the point of no return. We have to fire you. And she talked about, obviously the person was good to the company, or good for the company. The person had been there that long. And she also talked about how they had been having these conversations with this person over the years, right? And whatever this person was dealing with, she didn't tell on it. She didn't deal with it the way that it needed to be dealt with so that it would not be a detriment. Many people lose their jobs because of that very reason. Some people may be going through some physically abusive situations at home. Some people may be suffering from some sort of addiction or whatever the case may be. It could be a number of things that's going on that starts to affect your performance at work in a negative way. But, because you won't tell on it, or because certain people don't tell on it, it'll end up telling on you, just like this situation that I'm talking about, where this person is about to lose their job after 20-something years invested in this place because that person won't or wouldn't tell on it. Now it's telling on her from a perspective of they having that pink slip conversation with her. So you out there it's just listening to this podcast, you out there in the workforce that's having some situations that has been affecting your performance from a negative standpoint, whatever that is, whatever that may be, even if you feel safe enough to have some conversations with the Kick Your Butt Out community about it, you don't have to reveal your name or anything. You don't have to reveal who you are or anything. I would love to have some conversations with you, because one of the reasons why one of my brothers isn't here on the face of this earth is because a lot of things went on in this life that he didn't feel safe enough to talk about. He didn't have a voice, or that's what he felt like. So he didn't say nothing and ended up suffering in silence, to the point of he got to a place where it's like, I don't even want to try anymore. I'm ready to leave this earth because it's so evil. Please, you do not have to be in that situation or in that place. There are many resources out here. You gotta talk about it. You have to tell on it. And I'm not saying go stand at the bus stop or get on the bus or stand in the middle of Walmart or whatever the case may be and shout it to the rooftops. Find a safe place. That's one of the reasons why I got 9 years in recovery right now. Because I found a safe place to talk about those things that I wouldn't talk about, that I was scared to talk about, that I was afraid to talk about. I allowed myself to be human. I allowed myself to have flaws. I allowed myself to be imperfect and be a person who made a lot of mistakes. And I told about it. That's one of the reasons why I'm healed, men and women. Please, hear me. Hear me. It's one of the reasons why I sit here healed today. So, again, it can affect not only your intimate relationships, it can affect your professional relationships, and it can even affect your relationship with your children. What am I saying? I'm saying you have to allow your children to have a safe place to come and talk about what they need to talk about. When we was growing up, it was be seen and not heard. It was what I say goes. We knew not to say a word. And in many of our cases, we've carried that into our adulthood. Many of us who grew up with me are at ages where we are grandparents now. And many of us still don't know how to talk about or tell on what's really going on. We still don't know. We still don't know how to do that. And we've taught that to our children. And so our children are suffering in silence from a standpoint of being abused by their significant others, being beat, being emotionally, mentally, spiritually abused. And they're not even saying anything because we've taught them how to shut up. We have taught them how not to tell on it. We got to stop this, people. Because what we're doing is we are hindering our healing. I'm not even talking about the extraordinary potential and the greatness. I'm not even talking about that right now. I'm talking about healing or lack thereof because of the things that we will not, the things that we need to talk about that we won't, that we refuse to, or that we are scared to have conversations about. We have taught that to our children. And guess what our children are doing? They're teaching it to their children. And we have to stop. We have to stop. That's one of the reasons why depression and suicide and all of these other detriments are on the rise. Addiction, overdosing, all of that stuff is on the rise because many of those people, and I know because of the field that I work in and my own experiences with it, the people that are suffering from those things, it has a whole lot to do with, but you won't tell on it. It has a whole lot to do with that. So people, talk. Teach your children how to talk. Teach your grandchildren how to talk. Tell on it so you can heal. And then you can see clear to walk in that greatness and that extraordinary potential that's inside of you. T.D. Jakes said it like this, and then I'm going to end. He said, you pregnant with something, and that thing is in labor. That thing wants to come out. And you the only one that could birth it forth. You're the only one that can do that. And in many cases, people, all it takes to birth forth that thing or to move the thing out of the way so that thing can be birthed forth is telling on it. That's all it takes in many cases. So I'm strongly encouraging you all. This is a platform. You can talk to me. I know how it goes. I've been there, done that from a personal standpoint as well as a professional standpoint. So I'm double in this. And I would love to help in any way that I possibly can. If the help is too much for me, I know some people that I could point you to that'll be able to help. So please, y'all, tell on it before it tells on you. This is Paul, your hip hop relationship and recovery coach. And I'm going to end this podcast. But before I end it, I'm going to say what I always say. If you're looking for a butt, it's going to always be easy to find one. So tune in with me and let's have some conversations around this. Until then, be well, everybody, or get well. Do the next right thing, not try to win. And may God bless you all. See you all then. Peace.